The sun bled gold across the horizon, spilling light over the endless plains where wind carried, stories older than any living soul. And in that lonely stretch between dust and destiny rode Aiyana, the woman whose heart had become the center of a storm she never wished to summon. She had chosen the rancher over her tribe, turned her back on the people who raised her, believed in her, taught her to track the sky and read the earth, all for a man whose touch softened. The war inside her, but whose world threatened to tear her identity completely apart. The decision was not made in a moment of impulse. It was a slow burn, a quiet, creeping fire that had started the day she first met Colt Maddox, the rancher with storm-gray eyes and a voice roughened by desert winds, who found her unconscious near a rattlesnake hole after she was thrown from her horse during a scouting run. When she awoke in his cabin, wrapped in blankets and smelling the unfamiliar scent of leather polish and pine soap, she felt less like a rescued stranger and more like a woman, stepping uninvited into a new chapter she had not chosen. Colt had simply smiled, tipped his hat, and said, "You're safe. I ain't asking who you are unless you want me to know." That humility, that unexpected respect, cracked something open in her chest, a softness she had not allowed herself to feel since her father's death. Yet as the days passed, the connection grew, subtle as drifting sand, shared glances over campfire flames, silent conversations carried in the way he handed her water without breaking eye contact, the gentle way he wrapped her injured shoulder, careful not to cross the line she herself could barely define. What startled her most was how natural it felt, and when she finally left the cabin and returned to her people, she found that the memory of him traveled with her like a second shadow. Her tribe, the Red River Crow, had accepted her return with relief and celebration, yet they noticed her distraction, the new quietness in her spirit, the way she gazed west when the sun dipped low toward his ranch. Her uncle, Chief Toka, read the truth in her eyes long before she dared speak it aloud. "Your heart strays," he warned in a low voice one night as they watched the fire crackle. "And when hearts stray, they do not return without taking something with them." She denied it then. But truth is a river. It carves through stone no matter how fiercely the stone resists. The final breaking point came one moonless night, after hunters returned with news that the ranchers and tribes were on the verge of tension again. Cattle found dead, arrows discovered in the dust, hoofprints of unknown origin. War simmered at the edges of the prairie like heat above the horizon. Aiyana knew her people suspected Colt, and she also knew Colt suspected an unknown raiding band trying to spark chaos. If she stayed silent, blood would spill. Her tribe's blood, the rancher's blood, Colt's blood. So she rode under the cover of darkness, wind whipping her braids behind her, her horse's hooves pounding, the earth as if carrying not a woman, but a decision that could reshape the fate of everyone who touched it. When she arrived at Colt's ranch and saw lanterns glowing in the windows, her breath hitched, not because she feared being seen, but because the sight felt like home in a way she couldn't explain. Colt stepped out before she even dismounted, as if he heard her approach in the wind itself. "You came back," he said, not a question but a promise, one that wrapped around her heart too tightly. In that moment, her choice was made, not by logic, not by loyalty, but by something deeper and older than both. She told him everything, the brewing suspicion, the danger, the likelihood of war. Colt listened without interrupting, jaw tight, shoulders tense. But when she finished, he simply said, "Then we stop it together." And that was the moment the world changed. Because the next morning, when she returned to her tribe to try and mediate peace, she was met not with welcomes, but with spears crossed in front of her as warriors whispered of betrayal. Someone had seen her leaving the camp the night before. Someone had followed her to the ranch. Rumors spread like wildfire, twisting truth into poison. Chief Toka stood tall before the tribe, his eyes shadowed with disappointment deeper than anger. "You go where you should not go," he said loudly enough for all to hear. "You protect one who is not one of us. You choose the outsider over your blood." Aiyana's heart thrashed against her ribs, but she did not deny it. Choosing Colt felt like choosing breath over suffocation, and so she said the words that sealed her fate. "I chose peace, and he is part of that." "Peace!" Gasps rippled through. the camp like a sudden storm wind. Accusations followed, harsh and loud, voices rising with panic and fury as someone shouted, "She brought danger to us!" Another yelled, "Her loyalty is broken!" And the worst one, "The ranchers will destroy us because she told them our thinking." She tried to speak, but her words drowned beneath the roar. She reached for her uncle, but he lifted a hand to silence her. "Aiyana," he said slowly, voice heavy with pain, "until the truth is known, until your intentions prove pure, you cannot remain among us. Leave. Go to the world you've chosen, and may the spirits judge whether your choice brings salvation or ruin." The camp fell silent. Wind carried dust across her feet like a burial shroud. Her mother wept quietly, unable to look at her. Children who once admired her now hid behind their mother's skirts. Warriors she had trained beside stared at her as if she were a stranger wearing Aiyana's face. And so she mounted her horse, spine straight though her soul trembled, and rode away from the only life she had ever known. She did not cry, not yet. The earth beneath her hooves felt cold. Her heartbeat felt like a war drum inside her ribs. When she reached Colt's ranch again, he saw the truth immediately, saw the exile in her eyes, the devastation in her silence. He stepped forward, cupped her face with steady, calloused hands and whispered, "Whatever happens next, you're not facing it alone." But even as she leaned into him, grateful for his steadiness in her unraveling world, she could feel the consequences closing in around them. Because exiles carry storms with them, and her storm was coming fast. Smoke on the horizon, footprints where there should be none, a gunshot echoing across the plains. Something or someone was stirring trouble, a force far more dangerous than tribal tension or rancher pride. And as Aiyana stood beside Colt on that dusty porch, her tribe turning their backs and the ranchers preparing for conflict, she realized the shocking truth. The real enemy had been hiding in the shadows all along, watching, waiting, feeding the flames of division. And what she would do next would shake not just her tribe or the ranchers, but the entire Wild West to its very core. For the first time in her life, she understood destiny was not something written in the stars, but something forged in the choices she made, choices she would now defend with her life. And as dusk settled over the prairie like a dark curtain, she whispered to herself the words that kept her spine unbroken. "This is not the end. This is the beginning."